What's up guys, Cass here from GiveWave Studios, and on this one I'm going to show you guys how to turn these 19 pieces of foam into the absolute best bird, Xiao Fei, from the Netflix series Scissor 7. Alright, let's get it. Alright, so if you got the DIY kit, obviously all of your parts are going to come pre-cut for you, but if you got the patterns, the PDF patterns, so you would have to cut out your patterns from the sheet and then cut out all of your appropriate parts. So here I'm just going to go real quick on how to assemble the little wing on the side right here. So I've traced this on a scrap piece of foam that was just big enough to hold the wing, and then I'm going to glue it on top of a larger piece of foam, and then I'm going to cut out the two pieces. You want this to be doubled up because we want the wing a little chunkier, so that's why I'm gluing two pieces together. All right, let's get it. All right, so in cutting out these pieces, the bottom part of the wing here, we're going to want to cut at an angle. This is so that it kind of lays, you know, like arms down type of situation, or should I say wing down. We're going to go ahead and slice our piece just kind of like at a 45-degree or more angle, right along the edge, the bottom edge there. And then the rest of our cuts we can just do normally following our lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my little slice here, get rid of that, and then do a little slice here, get rid of that. Now you'll notice that I didn't round off the wing. I left just kind of like the point there. So if we compare that to my pattern, you can see that there's a little point there. I leave that so that it's going to be a lot easier to sand this round or Dremel it down than to actually try and get such a small rounded curve with a knife. Unless you have a bandsaw or something like that, you could probably get that curve done. But with doing it manual, as I'm showing you guys in the tutorial, it's better to leave the little point and then sand it down afterwards. So I'm going to do the same for the other one, and I'll catch you guys for the next step. All right, so here are our two little wing pieces. As you can see, the slight angle going at the base of the wing. So we'll work on these guys in a little bit, and we're going to do a similar situation for the beak. You're going to grab your beak and you're going to go from this piece right here to something that looks more like this. So basically I've just cut the edges at an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my X-Acto blade almost right up to where the vertical edge meets the horizontal edge. It could be a little under, it could be right there. Just try to get as close to it as possible and just make a diagonal slice that follows that general curve. So we'll get something like this on this side, and then we're going to go ahead and mirror that cut on the other side. Let's go for it. Okay, and we're going to get something that generally looks like this. Now obviously you can go ahead and sand this and clean it up a little bit and make it a little bit more even, or just kind of take your time more with the cut. So you're going to want two of these, one for the top of the beak and one for the bottom of the beak. And of course this is going to become this part here, and this curve is here so that it can follow your general body shape once it's done. All right. Okay, so we have our wings, our beak, a little hair piece, our two little beady eyes, and our two little rosy cheek pieces. Now these don't necessarily have to be cut out of foam. I use 2mm foam for the cheeks and for the eyes, 10mm for the hair, but these can just be painted on also. They don't have to be glued on if you don't want it protruding off of your part. You can actually just kind of grab a brush and paint that on. So that's basically it for prep for all of our small parts. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that aside, and we're gonna grab our 8 pieces that are gonna form our body, and we're going to heat seal all of our parts with our heat gun. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick demo of what we're gonna do for all 8 pieces. So notice how when the foam is heated, it goes from this matte finish to this kind of like shiny finish. That's as heated as you want to get it. You don't want to heat it up too much to the point where you cause a burn to the foam. So if you look at this, for example, as you're heating, you want to kind of move your source around, because if you leave it in the same area for too long, you can see that you've caused a burn to the foam, and there's nothing that you can do to hide this with paint or anything like that. It's just permanently damaged if you have a part like this. So be careful, spread your heat out evenly. You don't need to spend a lot of time heating your parts. As soon as you see that sheen, you're usually good to go. And once you have your shape nice and heated, I have a metal anvil here, but you can use any rounded object to just kind of like form your pieces and give them a little bit of dimensionality. You can use your elbow, you can use your knee, you can even just kind of like use your thumbs to just kind of like spread out the piece. And so we're gonna go from a flat piece like this to something that has a little bit more dimensionality. It's kind of looking like, you know, leftover orange peel, something like that. So we're gonna do that for all 8 of our pieces, and then we're going to assemble everything together. Now we're going to go ahead and put contact cement on all of our edges. So remember, when using contact cement, you don't need a lot of this. You don't need to be like soaking wet. You just need a nice, let's describe it as like a white snot on your arm gloss, as disgusting as that sounds. But if you take a look, there's not a lot there. So you want to avoid this, right? This globbing, and you want to do something that is more akin to something like that, as opposed to like this. So what we're gonna do is assemble this in halves. So we're gonna do 4 of our pieces first. Usually my go-to test to make sure that my parts are ready. So let's say on this piece, for example, that I just did, I'll grab a clean finger, and if I can put my finger on it and my finger lifts it, it's not ready. But if I put my finger on it and my finger doesn't lift it, then it's probably dry enough for me to start sticking. All right, so let's do that for a couple of pieces, and then I will show you guys how to put this together.
A few minutes later.
As you can see, I'm touching it. My finger is not lifting it off of the bed. So I will start with the pieces that I did first and install those. These guys are more recent. I'm gonna give them some time to dry while I do this. So easy enough. These don't have any tick marks in them. They're fairly short pieces, so you should be able to just attach the two. So we're gonna start by aligning our outer pieces as flush to each other as possible, as we just kind of follow our paths and glue our parts to each other. So edge to edge, as you can see, and if there's anything that didn't stick very well, just kind of go back and reverse the curve and really push the parts up against each other, and then bring your curve right back out. That way you're sure that you have a nice good connection on your outer seams. Your inner ones can suffer a little bit. That's not too bad. And so let's put these 2 guys together, and then we'll put these 2 with themselves. At a certain point, if you lose the tackiness on your contact cement, you can either put a fresh coat on top of it, or you can grab your heat gun and just kind of heat the existing glue that's on there real quick. And that should be enough to tack it a little bit so that it can glue back. So we're gonna put these with each other. As you can see, good connection. As we start putting these guys together, it's going to be harder and harder to do this reverse technique to make sure that the seams align well with each other. So just, you can try, but don't force it too much. Right? So if something's not aligning, just put it flat down, push it up against itself, and and do the best you can. A lot of times if you want a super smooth finish on your pieces of foam, there's going to be a lot of sanding involved to make sure that you get rid of all of your seams, some filling, etc., and we'll go into details a little later. But now we have our first half, and we're going to make our second half, and I'm going to glue the two parts together. So I'll catch you guys for the next step. All right, so I'm just gonna slowly put my two halves together along with you guys. This is probably the hardest part of the build. It's just making sure that everything is aligned and squeezed. So I'm trying to do one side at a time. Okay, and as you can see, I started with kind of like a big gap there. That's perfectly fine. That's where our little arms, or should I say wings, are gonna end up being. So eventually that stuff is gonna get closed up. But if you care to try to get it to close up properly, you can definitely force the foam into place to actually do that. For this particular case, I don't really care much about it because I know I'm gonna be able to hide it. So I'm not gonna complicate my life for that. Okay, as I get close here, I wanna make sure that my seams line up here, okay? And I can just shift over to the other side. Just slowly start closing this little opening here. Again, trying to make sure that I am as straight with the surface on my two seams as possible. Okay, and then right here, just kind of push those closed into each other. And once I'm done with everything, I can usually try to kind of like go in and really force this closed a little bit more. You can tell I went from this large gap here to something a little bit like this, so it's a little bit more manageable. So kind of leave that to the end, and you can usually get that a little closer to being perfectly closed than anything else. But don't lose the form that you've just created just trying to close those gaps. Again, our little wings are gonna go right there and cover that up, so no issues there. All right, cool. You've made basically a little sphere for the body, and now I'm gonna go ahead and attach some of the parts. I'll catch you guys for the next step. If you feel so inclined, you can definitely grab a Dremel with a stone bit on top of it to just kind of like go in and clean up your seams a bit. I'm gonna wanna finish this to make it a little smoother, but if you're happy, you can just go ahead and go straight to Plasti Dip and then paint. I'm just gonna take these little extra steps to finish it off a little bit cleaner, and then I'm gonna catch you guys for the next steps. I know you can see a lot of these seams, but you can't feel them when I run my fingers through them. So with like a little bit of like caulking or some of like the clay foam, you can just kind of like fill that in and make this super, super smooth. I'm gonna go ahead and sand the little wings down to make them a little bit less angular, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. All right, so here I have all of our little tidbits. Our beak, the beak doesn't really need to be sanded down that much, but I'm just really going to do it to the wings real quick. So I'll do one, and I can kind of like show you guys, compare and contrast what they look like. Okay, so basically we're going from this flat angled piece that you see in this hand to something a little bit more softer and rounded that looks more like a little chibi wing that could be put on the side. And then we can heat this and kind of curve it a little bit like so. So it has like a little wingy look to it. And then we can attach that to the body of our piece. And then for this guy, we can also do a little bit of beveling on the edges here. I'll show you guys what that looks like. All right, and here we go. If you guys can see, nice soft edges here on the front, but if I turn this around, you can see I still have the sharp edges from the previous cut. That's what I mean, just kind of like giving things a little round edge, making it look a little bit more finished. Again, this is extra detail stuff that you don't have to do if you're happy with the way that your parts look, the way that they are. All right, so I'm gonna finish this up and then we're going to go to assembly and painting. All right, so now with all of our parts prepped, it's just a matter of placing our different bits and tracing onto the foam to figure out, if this is the optimal placement. Is it centered? Do I need to shift it left, right, up, down, whatever the case may be? Try to work from the actual seam lines. So for example, you see here, I'm placing the beak half on top of a seam and the other half at the bottom of a seam. This is going to help center yourself. So this is gonna like my general area. I would just kind of take a look at it, make sure that it's centered this way and centered that way. And then once you figure out the placement of one thing, that's literally gonna dictate everything else. So start with the beak, make sure that you have it as centered as possible. And then other things like the hair, so I can grab that, just follow my imaginary line and then bring it up to this top seam right here. And here I have where the hair is going to be. Obviously, these are going to be the last things that we do, minus the wings. We're going to glue the wings right now because these parts are going to be painted the same color. All right, here we have our little guy and his little nubby wings. We have the position of our beak right here, so I'm going to use that on, again to kind of like center my hair, make sure that I can mark that. All right, so I have this general area that I know that that's where my hair is going to go. That will also kind of like inform me of how far out I want my hairline to be. Okay, so this is something that's going to be completely up to you guys.
Meanwhile,
depending on if you are team hair or team hat for this detail. So if you wanted something that came off the top of the head instead of painting it onto the head itself, you can grab a 2mm piece of foam and cut yourself out a circle, which is roughly the equivalent of a brand new roll of Scotch blue tape. And so you can heat that and form it, and you can glue that to the top of your little character, which is probably what we're going to end up doing. So quick little side note. I'm going to grab this piece of paper and I'm going to mark about 2 inches on here. So from the corner here to the blue mark is about 2 inches. So I'm going to find the center of the mark that I made, more or less, and then I'm going to put that paper on there right at the seam from the middle, and I'm going to go behind it, do the same thing, mark a 2-inch point. I'm going to go to the side of it, mark the 2-inch mark, and then the 4th one in the middle, mark the 2-inch point. So now I kind of have like those 4 coordinates. I can more or less just kind of trace a circle that connects all 4 of those coordinates. He has that little black piece on top of his head that you see here. So this is basically what we're drawing out here. What I'm going to do is probably score this so that I don't lose it when I plasti dip it. So now that we have that, everything else is just going to get added after we've painted our part. So let's go ahead and prep all of these guys for plasti dipping, and then I will catch you guys on the next step. So because these pieces are so small, I'm going to grab a piece of masking tape, place it sticky side up, and then grab 2 little smaller pieces to place them sticky side down. That way, when I go to the paint booth and I'm painting these guys, I can stick this down to my table, and then if I try to flick this off, I won't be able to do it. Neither will the spray paint be able to blow this off of the paper. So alright, so I'm going to do my body and this nice blue blaze plasti dip, and then my other parts and my good old regular black plasti dip. Alright, so now all that's left for us to do is to glue the rest of our pieces and position everything and complete our prop. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue the two beak halves together. And so I'm going to glue this on top of this area, and then I'm going to glue my little whatever this little chicken thing is on top of the head and the eyes, and I'll catch you guys for the next step. Alright, so that completes our little bouncy boy. And because I already have a regular face Xiao Fei, I think I'm gonna make this guy an angry boy. So I've cut myself some angry eyebrows, and I'm gonna go ahead and super glue these guys in place and change the mood completely. Now obviously this is completely up to you if you want to do this or not. I happen to have two of these guys, so I can go against the cuteness on this one. So I'm gonna go angry. And there we have it, guys. Your very own Xiao Fei from Scissor 7. So I hope this tutorial was useful. I hope you guys learned something on this one. If you'd like to see me do anything else from this series, or maybe from something else, let it be known in the comments. And this has been Cass from GiveWave Studios, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers. Alright, so post-credit scene time. As you guys saw throughout the tutorial, I have two Xiao Feis. This guy ended up making completely enclosed, so he bounces properly like a ball. But this guy is actually hollow. And what I have here is a cutout. So his head is completely open. All I did was slice open where we had initially traced where the hairline was going to be. And then once I remove this portion, I added a 2mm strip all the way around this, so that once I put it back, it could kind of seal up and push onto the opening a little bit more, so it didn't look like there was visibly an opening there. And then on the inside, as you can see, it's just 5mm strips, about 1 inch long each. Okay, and on the inside of them, if you can tell, there is a valley cut, an angled cut on the inside that allows it to just kind of hinge in place. And there are 6x3 neodymium magnets embedded on the part that protrudes out, and then the receiving magnets on the other side here. This allows him to be, like we mentioned earlier, hollow, so I can store his brace on the inside here, or maybe just put stuff on the inside of him. So I will show you guys how it is that I wear him out for the cosplay. All right, so it's basically a bandolier. You can see I have a 5mm EVA foam strip with some elastic waistband. The wide part goes under the arm like this. This goes under the armpit here so that it lands right on the shoulder, and then this goes over my head, either on the other side of my neck here, or I'll open my arm and put it on the other side of my arm like this, right? That way this doesn't slide away from me. And then what happens is I have some larger neodymium magnets that I leave in here that I just drop inside of Xiao Fei. Put his head back on. Obviously I wear my hoodie over this, and then I just kind of position him in place. That way now I can walk around where I'm around, and even if I shake around, it's really hard for him to fall off from that position, even though I just kind of overdid it there a little bit. So yeah, that's how I do that. That's how I attach him to my cosplay. So in case this was useful for anyone, or if you guys wanted to take it the extra step and do something similar to this. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers, for real this time.